Okay. Let's dive in. We've got some really interesting source material that you've shared, stuff that gives us a unique peek into a relationship that's, vital but feels like it's hitting some turbulence lately.
That's right. We're talking about the U.S. and Canada. Specifically, we're looking at defense cooperation, but also some, let's say, pretty surprising proposals flying around.
Yeah, surprising is one word for it. The material comes from an article, Canada Weighs Golden Dome, 51st State Offer. Catchy title.
It is. And it paints quite a picture of the talks and, frankly, the tensions between these two neighbors.
So our mission today for you listening is to unpack the key details from this source, understand the context, and figure out what's really going on. What's the core issue here?
Well, let's start with a big headline item, this Golden Dome idea.
Right. The article describes it as a U.S. proposal for a major missile defense shield.
Exactly. It's meant to guard against a, quote, wide array of enemy weapons. And the plan, apparently, is to have it up and running by the end of 2029. So quite soon, relatively speaking.
And the price tag. The source mentions Mr. Trump estimating the total cost around, $175 billion?
That's the figure attributed to him, yes. But importantly, the article also includes expert voices saying, look, this thing faces huge technical and political challenges, and the cost could actually be far more.
Okay, so a massive undertaking. But then there's the offer specifically made to Canada. This is where it gets unusual.
Very unusual. The article pulls a direct quote attributed to Mr. Trump from his Truth Social network.
And it says Canada can join for $61 billion if they remain a separate but unequal nation. Or
$0 if they become our cherished 51st state.
wow, okay, that's incredibly blunt. Linking defense participation directly to annexation.
It's unmistakable. And the source adds that Mr. Trump apparently claims Canada very much wants to be part of this, that they even called about it and, that it automatically makes sense. But, and this is key, they have to pay its fair share. Unless, of course, they take the other option.
So faced with that kind of proposition, what does the article say about Canada's response?
Well, two main things come through. First, yes, Canada has shown interest in the missile system itself. That part seems genuine.
Okay.
But second, they've firmly, absolutely rejected any talk of losing sovereignty. A clear pushback on the whole 51st state angle.
And these aren't just theoretical discussions, right? The article says Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed high-level talks have happened.
That's correct. These conversations are real, but it's also important to remember this isn't happening in a vacuum. There's a long history of defense cooperation here.
You mean NORAD?
Exactly. The North American Aerospace Defense Command. Joint U.S.-Canada effort. Been around since, 1958?
Yeah, a cornerstone. Their job is aerospace warning, control, maritime warning, basically keeping eyes on the skies and seas over North America for threats like missiles or unknown aircraft.
Critical stuff. But here's a really crucial point the article highlights. Despite NORAD, Canada is not currently part of the U.S. Northern Command's specific ballistic missile defense system.
Ah, okay. So NORAD lets them see the threats together.
Right. Shared early warning, situational awareness. But the actual power to, say, shoot down an incoming ballistic missile heading for North America, that capability currently rests solely with the United States.
And the article gives some history on that.
It does. It mentions that back in 2005, under former PM Paul Martin, Canada specifically decided not to join the U.S. system. A decision, the article notes, that's been criticized and sort of revisited internally since then.
So maybe that history plus current threats makes Golden Dome look more appealing now.
The article suggests it might seem like a most natural choice, especially because the current Canadian government, the Liberals, are reportedly focused on boosting air defense anyway.
And the Prime Minister's office even confirmed they're negotiating a, quote, new security and economic relationship, which naturally includes strengthening NORAD and related initiatives such as the Golden Dome. So they're framing it as part of a bigger picture.
Exactly. But it's fascinating. This potential step towards deeper defense integration is happening while other things are, well, let's just say, creating friction.
Yeah, let's talk about that friction. The whole 51st state thing keeps coming up. The article says Canada sees these repeated suggestions as a direct attack on Canadian sovereignty.
And it wasn't just the recent offer. The source reminds us of an alleged incident back in November 2024 where Mr. Trump supposedly called former PM Justin Trudeau the governor of the 51st state.
Oof. And Prime Minister Carney's response?
Very clear. The article cites his comment during that May 7th meeting with Mr. Trump, apparently right after the idea was floated again. Carney's words were, Canada is not for sale. Pretty definitive.
So political sovereignty is one major point of tension. What else does the article mention?
Economics.
Right.
Specifically, the tariff battle.
Right. The U.S. put on 25% tariffs, citing things like border security, fentanyl, migration, and Canada hit back.
Yeah, with 25% counter tariffs on about $30 billion worth of U.S. goods. The article says some have been paused, but the whole issue is far from resolved. It's still simmering.
And these tensions are apparently making Canada rethink other things, too.
That's what the source suggests. It points to Canada reconsidering a huge defense purchase, the F-35 fighter jets.
Whoa, really? They ordered 88 of them in 2023, right? Paid for the first batch already.
Correct. For 16 are due early next year. But the article claims that because of this prevailing mistrust, Canada is actually thinking about canceling the rest of the order and maybe looking at European jets instead.
Canceling the F-35s would be a massive statement.
It really would. So when you put all these pieces from the source together, you have these serious talks about potentially joining a major U.S. missile defense system, the Golden Dome.
Which is a big shift from 2005, building on NORAD. But it's happening at the same time as these unresolved trade fights, this really provocative 51st state talk that Canada rejects outright, and now maybe even reconsidering buying America's top fighter jet.
It's this strange mix, isn't it? Cooperation on one hand, serious friction on the other. The article even mentions a recent meeting between PM Carney and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance in Rome, trying to smooth things over, perhaps.
And Carney posted on X afterwards, right? The article quotes him talking about building a new economic and security relationship, mentioning trade, defense, the border, and ending with, "We're strongest when we work together."
Sounds conciliatory, trying to find that common ground.
Yeah.
But as the article cautions right at the end, whether it means the end of the diplomatic tussle remains to be seen.
So for you listening, what this snapshot from the source really shows is this core tension. Canada's looking at deeper defense ties with the U.S. via Golden Dome, a potentially huge strategic move, but it's all wrapped up with these politically explosive sovereignty questions, economic disputes like tariffs, and maybe even pulling back from major U.S. defense contracts like the F-35.
It highlights just how interconnected everything is: security, the economy, national identity, in this incredibly close, yet sometimes strained relationship.
It definitely leaves you with something to think about. How does that history, that 2005 decision not to join the U.S. missile defense system, inform how we should view these Golden Dome talks today? Especially as the article lays out, when the offer comes with this kind of sovereignty proposal attached and all these other economic tensions bubbling underneath, a lot to mull over there.